I had one law firm call me a couple of weeks ago that said they used our tool in the middle of litigation to help with the cross-examination of an expert, and that our tool completely transformed the cross-examination and it completely transformed the case, and they were able to get a really nice seven-figure verdict from it.
Sharp strategies, sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. I'm your host, Tiffany Swedensky. And today we have with us Josh Schmerling of Law Pro AI. I actually met him at the AI for PI Expo down in Orlando. That was back in mid-January, if I remember right. And we talked about his program and the tool and what it does. I was really impressed. And what stood out to me from that conversation is that I asked you, it's like, how are attorneys doing this before AI? Like, how are they doing this kind of stuff in the 90s? And you said, like, forget the 90s, like, how are they doing it now? And a lot of law firms are still using antiquated systems for medical records collection, billing, and document review, and a bunch of other stuff that a tool can do. He said it to me before the podcast, and it was a little too sophisticated for me to remember. So I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself and his tool, and so you guys can get to learn more about him. So thank you so much, Josh.
Great, Tiffany. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. So I'm a personal injury attorney myself out of Maryland. Started my own law firm right out of law school and grew my personal injury firm from nothing to a decent firm with about 12 people, and we were doing decently. And then we got stuck, and our revenue had been stuck for a number of years, and we were not growing any longer. And what I realized was we really had a pain point in terms of how to deal with the medical records and the bills. And I realized that with the technology out there today, that there was a better way to do it because I was having a ton of time and resources going into understanding the medical records and bills. So what I eventually did as a need from my law firm is I co-founded LawPro.ai with my brother, and we hired a whole team of data scientists and engineers to create LawPro.ai, which basically takes all of the medical records and bills for any personal injury case, and it breaks it down to makes it really easy to understand. So it does file summaries and case level summaries. It does visual timelines so you can see all the treatment dates. It does a whole medical chronology. And then you can interact with all the medical records and bills as well by asking specific questions or wanting to see certain things or certain items or have certain documents drafted like a demand letter. And so it got rid of the pain point I was having in my law firm. Since implementing LawPro.ai, we've grown by about 3x in the last couple of years. And a large part of that is we're able to shorten time on desk and increase case values. And LawPro.ai is a tool that's used for medical records and bills from pre-litigation all the way to litigation and negotiations.
I'm really curious when you found a company, like essentially a SaaS company, or would you call Law Pro AI SaaS? Is that the category
Yes.
it falls into? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talk about like founding something like that, did you walk into like that first meeting with a clear picture of what the tool will do and all of its capabilities? Or how did that come about?
Well, my brother and I started chatting about what the pain point was, and we started chatting about how we could fix it. And I started with, we need a medical chronology because that's what my team was spending their time on, was creating medical chronologies. And I said, that's what we really need here is a medical chronology. Then when we saw that our team could really start doing that, then we started saying, all right, what else can we do here? Right? Medical chronology is not the only thing. We know we can do that now. We've got that taken care of. What else can we do? And that's when we started moving into some of these other items that we have in terms of drafting documents and summaries and a visual timeline and be able to really interact with the case and chat with it. And now we just have so many other ideas now that we see what's possible that we keep coming out with more technology and new technology every quarter. And we're going to keep releasing new items.
So, I mean, your tool does a lot. How do you think like you could have built this or something similar pre-chat GPT or pre-AI, or was that like, what kind of technologies have you used to build this?
Yeah, so we use a lot of different technologies to build this. What's really important to know is we are not a like ChatGPT wrapper. So LawPro.ai is not just like using ChatGPT on the back end and giving results to people that they would be able to get on ChatGPT. We don't do that. So we're using about 10 to 12 different technologies on the back end that are all going through all the different data that we have every time. And the last piece of the technology that goes through everything is something that we've created. We call it hallucination prevention technology, which is patent pending. that goes back through everything before it goes to the end user to pull out any issues, any potential hallucinations or errors to autocorrect them. And so that's the last part of what we're doing, but we have a whole stack of items that's going through all the records and bills before it gets to the end user.
So I have a second question, but first, will you explain to my listeners what a chat GPT wrapper is and maybe like where they've seen that kind of program?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of people out there that claim they do AI, but if you really dig deep into it, what's happening is you're putting it into a company called XYZ Company, and all XYZ Company is on the back end is using a large language model, whether it's ChatGPT or a different large language model, to then give you an output. So you think you have this company, you think that you have this great technology that you're paying for, but really you could just go pay for the technology yourself directly and use it. Instead, you're paying a huge markup to a company that's claiming that they are, have this amazing technology when it's just a wrapper. It looks like a different company, but it's really just a large language model that anybody would have access to.
So, to build the program that you have now, what type of developers did you have? Like, what was their experience? How many did you have? How'd you find them? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things when you're dealing with medical records and bills, which is really important to keep in mind, is number one, you cannot just put those items through large language models because those models are not HIPAA compliant. They're not closed systems. They are not SOC 2. They also train off the data that you put in. You can't put clients' data in there, their medical records in there, and have it train off that. So that's really one really important thing to be aware of just in general for law firms. The other thing to be aware of is, you need a really good experienced team to make sure the data is secure. And we knew that when we started LawPro.ai. So one of the first hires that we made was an engineer that worked for Amazon Web Services for over a decade. And his job with AWS was to take all the data from the Department of Defense that they were putting in through the AWS system and make sure it was secure. And we thought that was a perfect fit for what we were trying to do in dealing with law firm clients' medical records. And so the first thing he built out was to make sure that the data we had was secure and just as secure as the data that he was dealing with on an everyday basis when working for AWS. The next thing we really wanted to look into was not only how do we keep it secure, but how do we also make sure that we're getting the right outputs, right? And that's where we really brought in the right engineering team and data science team to help put everything together. And part of our data science and engineering team have created that hallucination prevention technology that I mentioned. So those were some of the really big items for us starting off. And then, of course, things like best practices, dual authentication to be able to access the data. We've hired third-party companies to check to make sure we're doing everything best possible standards to keep data secure and safe, which is part of the SOC 2 that we have as well. So those are all things that we've looked at to help make sure that the outputs that law firms are getting are accurate and that the data is secure.
So, well, I don't want to pry too much into like how your program was developed. So, but let me ask you this because I build a lot of automations using AI, and my general impression is people either overestimate how complicated it is or underestimate how complicated it is. And there are a lot of people out there now who are automation engineers who use AI as part of like automations. And how would you talk to an attorney or explain to an attorney, like, look, this is not like something, your college friend could make in 2 months. This is like, how would you explain that to somebody who's kind of questioning your program?
Yeah, of course. This is very complicated. Like I said, it's a 10 to 12 step process on the back end before it gets to the end user, where it's dealing with all the information asynchronously, number one. Number two, one of the other things that we've had to overcome is token limits, right? So if you go to put a lot of information to a large language model, you're limited with how much you can put in at one time. And we have law firms that are putting in 10, 20, 30, 50,000 pages at one time. There's no token limits with our system. We have law firms putting in 1,000 files at one time. There's no limit in terms of how many files at one time. And the other thing that we've built out is you can put in as big a file as you want, and it won't affect your coworkers or other law firm clients that we have. Then the other thing that you got to really think about, which makes this really complicated, is every medical record has lots of different dates on it, right? So you could have the date of service, the date of accident, the client's date of birth, the date the document was printed on. So pulling all the correct dates all the time on all these records that often are not in any chronological order makes it very tricky. And then one of the toughest parts, which we have spent a lot of time on, it's much different than what you would ever get from a large language model, is being able to show our work. So what I mean by that is if you create a document or a letter, being able to have citations that cite directly to the medical records of where the information came from. So a click of a button, you could pull up that record, or being able to look at a medical chronology, say, hey, where'd they get this data from? What document? And be able to click directly on there and have the exact document show up. So these are a couple different pain points that you typically will see dealing with large language models that are just not simple things to figure out. They're difficult. All these medical records are structured differently. They all come in different format. Some of them have handwritten notes still. So it's not as simple as a large language model being able to know, all right, on every record, here's where the date of service is going to be. It changes all the time, every time.
And that's one area that has advanced so much with AI, which is document review, organization, summaries. And that's one thing like I try to talk about when I talk about AI. It's only as good as the information it has and what it has to reference. And sometimes how it's been trained, but I'm a marketer, most of the time we're not dealing with ultra specialized LLM tools the way, your program obviously is. I mean, I don't know if you have a story like just out of your hat, but I'm curious because I mentioned the conversation we had at the event earlier this year. But do you have a client who you've started working with or you've implemented your tool with them and it was just like transformed what they did? Like do you like how far has your tool been able to bring somebody in terms of technology and into the future, I guess?
Yeah. So, first of all, two stories come to mind related to what we're talking about. One is, we had a law firm, in terms of the data's only, the output's only as good as the information that goes into it. And so we had a law firm that called us, that's a customer of ours, and they were upset because the date Law Pro pulled out that there was a surgery event, and they said this client didn't get a surgery. And I explained to them, we didn't just make that up, it came from somewhere. So we went through all the records and we went through all the bills with them. And it turns out one of the doctors incorrectly put a billing code on that was a surgical billing code. And so LawPro had pulled out that surgical billing code thinking that it was accurate because that's the data that was uploaded and pulled out saying that there was a surgery here. And I was able to show that lawyer that no, we did everything we were supposed to. LawPro did what it was supposed to. There's a surgical code on here and it pulled out a surgery based on that. Then they were able to see like that's not LawPro's issue, that's a data issue. And they were able to go talk to that doctor and say, why is this code on here? So I think it is really important to keep in mind the output's only going to be as good as the information that goes into it. In terms of helping law firms grow and succeed, obviously, I'm the first test case where we've grown about 3x in the last couple of years. But we've heard from a number of our customers that's helped them in a lot of different ways, depending on what their pain point is. If it's helping them with their pre-lit and get their cases done faster in pre-lit, if it's helping them in the middle of litigation. I had one law firm call me a couple of weeks ago that said they used our tool in the middle of litigation to help with the cross-examination of an expert, and that our tool completely transformed the cross-examination and it completely transformed the case, and they were able to get a really nice seven-figure verdict from it. And they were super excited about it. And that was the law firm that for a while was like, I'm not sure we need AI, not sure if we're going to use it. And when they saw that, they just said, this is a game changer. And then we have law firms that, that we've met with and we work with that are very heavy in litigation and want to make sure that we're going to be able to help them with litigation, whether it's answering discovery or helping with cross-examination or putting on your own experts for deposition. And we were able to show them how we could do all those things for their litigation heavy practice. So there's a lot of different ways you can use the tool throughout the process. And we have found that a lot of our firms have found a lot of success in getting rid of their pain points through using LawPro.
So you mentioned like you first used this at your firm and it saved a bunch of time, and I could easily see how it saves a bunch of time. Like, what did you guys do with the time it gave back? Like, how did you like reorient your workflow? Like, what happened once you implemented it?
So that's a question I get a lot. And paralegals often get nervous that, oh my gosh, if LawPro comes into our law firm, am I going to lose my job? And I can tell you, we have not let go of a single person as a result of LawPro. We actually have hired a lot more people because our firm has grown so much more now. And what we now do with all that extra time that our pre-lit paralegals and paralegals have is we have them focus more on the clients. And there's more conversations with the clients and checking in with the clients and seeing how they're doing, if they need help with anything, whether it's, helping them with a car rental or getting the car fixed or whatever it is. How's their medical treatment going? How are they feeling? Have they followed up for their referral appointments? Have they gotten the medication that they were prescribed? And there's just a lot more communication directly with the clients. And it makes it for a happier client. The clients are happier that way. And it actually helps the firm quite a bit because we actually are getting more referrals from prior clients than ever before. So the customer acquisition costs are going through the roof nowadays, and we're able to get clients and more of them than ever before for free. So we have hundreds of cases. I could do zero marketing now for now on, and we would have hundreds of cases coming through the door just because of how we've changed the entire client process and how we view the whole client experience.
And I've heard that a lot about AI. Like we've not lost a person, we've actually like hired quite a few people. And when you look at famous examples of AI and how it's affecting like the workforce, you hear about like the tech layoffs, but that's mostly tech companies. And there was quite a bit of like hiring bloat in the 2000s. So, a lot of those companies are letting those extra employees go that they didn't need, but they still hired. And AI is this cover, right? To make it look, not unappealing to their stockholders. So when you talk to small businesses and say like AI helped us grow, I don't think they always like connect the dots. And it's because your systems are more efficient and you're hesitant to hire if you're having to train a bunch of people on how to find files, what to look for in the files, where to get them. There's a lot of institutional knowledge that, comes with like file storage and data storage. And whenever you have AI that, makes it easy, like my favorite AI tool is my note taker, which is attending here. And I can go to my note taker and ask it a question about any meeting I've ever been in, essentially, and, get back an answer. And, it's such advanced search for like documents or any kind of files. Like, I mean, there's so many, like I'd start listing them, but I always forget to mention a few. And I think people just underestimate what they can do with that efficiency. And you can hire more people, you can grow, you can do other things. So I want to pivot a little bit. And I mean, if this kind of goes nowhere, then we can get back to talking about like a little more about your tool and what it can do. But I'm curious because you have a law firm and you also have the SaaS company. Like, what are you guys doing to market? Like either one or both of them. I'm not sure which one you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. I'll just kind of go down the route you're going down for a second, for a minute, which is not only are we helping law firms be more efficient, we're shortening time in desk and increasing case values. Sometimes these cases have one sentence, one line, one word that can completely change a case value. So if you're finishing cases faster and you're finishing them for a higher value, that's going to give a law firm more money to spend on marketing, which will then in turn help them grow. And I think when you put those two numbers together, more cases done at a higher case value, there's a lot more money that you can spend on your budget to grow your firm. And I can tell you, my law firm's a number one example of that. We were not doing a lot of marketing throughout our history. The only thing we were spending money on was basically search engine optimization. That was the only money we were spending on marketing for years. But once we were able to finish cases faster at a higher case value, we then had more marketing dollars to spend. And we started spending more marketing dollars on things like Google Ads, LSA, YouTube, Meta, right? All those different things, all those different channels. So our budget went from less than six figures to close to seven figures. And now we're getting all those clients coming in, and we're being very careful and methodical to make sure we have the right client experience. And those are just more clients that are going out and getting our name around the community. So that way we have more referrals coming in from them. And so that it all works together. And the reason we can do all that is because the extra cash flow we have from being, finishing cases faster at higher case values.
So, like, who's running your marketing? Do you have like a marketing? What does your marketing team look like? I guess maybe the better question here.
So for my law firm, our marketing group is I have a different company that does my SEO stuff. I have a different company that does my Google Ads and LSA. I have a different company that does my Meta, a different company that does my YouTube. And I have all different companies doing each one for some checks and balances, is kind of how I look at it. And sometimes we'll have a group meeting about something, like if I want to make sure YouTube's being incorporated in all the right places, I'll get us all on the call together. Or if something's going on with my Google Ads, and I think they could be using other stuff from my website that my SEO company is dealing with, I get them together. And I try to get everyone speaking to each other as much as possible to make sure, me as the client is getting taken care of the best way possible.
So you have like several vendors who are all doing pieces of it. That's pretty cool. And is it the same way for lawpro.ai, or do you guys have a different way of marketing the SaaS tool?
Yeah, so when it comes to LawPro, we have a head of marketing. So fortunately for me, that's not my job with LawPro. And so I'm not in the weeds in it. But yeah, I know that there are different ways that we're marketing and getting clients from online, from different events we attend, and so on.
We met at an event. How many are you attending this year, just out of curiosity?
Probably somewhere around 20 events. Yeah, I did three in January. I did one or two in February. I'm speaking at an event next week. I think I'm doing three or four in March, and it'll keep going like that throughout most of the year.
Yeah. And so, do you do like much of the legal work at the law firm, or are you very like high level there?
So I do keep some cases. My caseload's gone down dramatically since I now pretty much work law for Law Pro full time. But I keep some cases because I enjoy being a lawyer. I enjoy helping people, and that's really why I got into the space. But my caseload's gone from several hundred to, to very small nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of fascinated how, like, you're in these two businesses, you're attending 20 events. I imagine your life's like super busy. Was it always super busy, or has like starting the AI company just added to that? What has that change been like for you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I was a lot less busy a couple of years ago, for sure, before the AI company and before our firm started growing. Our firm had been at the same numbers for 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And I could go in and, work less than 40 hours a week and firm would just be trudging along and everything was good. But then we sprinkled on some AI with the right policies and procedures, which is important. And the firm started to really take off. And when you start taking off fast, things happen, things can break sometimes, things have to be relooked at. So all of that's happening at the same time as we're building an AI SaaS company. So yes, it's very crazy right now. I'm constantly traveling. I'm constantly in depositions because any days I'm in town, my law firm wants me to do a couple depositions here or there. So it's trying to manage time the best way possible. I have a great team at both companies, Zirkin and Schmerling Law and Law Pro, that makes it all possible.
Do you have like a COO at both companies, or somebody who kind of operates as a stand-in when you're not around, or somebody in that capacity?
So a paralegal in my office, who was my former head paralegal, and she was reading medical records all day long, but was way too talented to be spending her time doing that. She no longer reads medical records anymore, and she's now director of operations in the firm. And so she takes care of a lot of the day-to-day stuff that I used to do, which has freed up a lot of my time. And then for Law Pro, we're a startup, so we don't have a COO, but we have a number of us that take on different responsibilities.
So are you innovating on your tool on Law Pro AI? Are you adding features to it? What does that look like over the next few years, few months?
Yeah, it's hard to say a few years because this time is just moving so fast with AI that few years, I don't know exactly where we're going to be. But yeah, we keep adding more tools to LawPro every quarter. So every quarter, typically we come out with another tool or an update, and we send an email to all of our customers letting them know, hey, you can now do this with LawPro if you want additional training. Happy to do a training with your office. All of the trainings with LawPro are included for our price. And so law firms can take us up on as many trainings as they want. And what we try to do is understand in the market what's needed based on medical records and bills coming in. And we also take polls of our customers and talk to our customers. And we respond to our customers and what they need and try to update our technology based on that as well. We also recently did a poll with Morgan & Morgan of over 300 law firms throughout the country, personal injury law firms, to understand what was important to them. And so we try to take all this feedback and then we meet. We have an amazing head of product and we talk every couple of weeks to talk about, all right, here's where we're moving forward with a couple of items right now. Here's items we have coming down the pipeline and constantly putting out our new technology. The thing that's really nice for current customers is that they never get charged anything extra when we put out new technology. So as we make the platform more and more valuable to our customers, our pricing can go up over time and has. But for our customers that are currently with us, the pricing remains the original pricing point, basically.
Yeah. Another question I wanted to ask, and I don't want to forget it. You've gone from a law firm owner to somebody who has a product that you sell to other law firm owners. What in that transition process have you learned about other law firm owners, other law firms that, you want to share?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting is a lot of law firms operate differently and look at things differently. Just as simple as a demand letter. My law firm, for example, we don't care much about a demand letter. Either the insurance company is going to pay me what's fair for the case, or they're not. And if they don't, we're just going to file a lawsuit and we're going to go through litigation. And there's firms that have the completely different approach, that the demand letter is so important. They spend hours or days on it, and it's the end all be all, and this is going to get them the top value. And so it's been really interesting. That's just one example. But law firms work very differently. They don't all work the same. It's been really interesting to see some law firms that I meet are very much struggling. Some law firms are excelling, and there's lots of different reasons why. It's interesting to see, and I was one of these law firm owners. Some law firm owners have no interest in talking to vendors. Some love talking to vendors. When I was solely a law firm owner, I didn't want to talk to any vendors. Now I realize the vendors are there to try to help law firm owners and have a ton of knowledge because vendors go to all these different conferences and they know the newest and best tools and what's happening. And they actually have an inside scoop. And the lawyers are more focused on their cases, which they should be. And so now I've realized how important vendors can be to help law firms grow and grow the right way. So a couple different things that I've learned since moving to the side of things.
That's been my experience as well. And when I talk to people about my program and what I do, I tell them like it's very custom. It depends on the law firm. And in my own way, I'm trying to tell them like each law firm is really different. And some of the stuff that we're doing for one client may not work for you. Not necessarily telling them that to lower expectations, but if you're a business owner and you've never seen the inside of another business in the same industry, you will tend to assume like a lot of things are the same and everyone does it this way. And on the flip side, it's surprising to find out like the differences between the firms and that it's kind of interesting to see like largely what is the same and what often gets repeated. And you mentioned particularly with vendors, I was at one point a marketing, director for a law firm. That's where I got my start. And initially like talking to vendors, like I felt like the only marketing director in the US. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but you think like you're unique and then you see it from the vendor's perspective and, like an SEO vendor, and you realize your account manager talks to probably 20 to 30 people, different marketing directors at firms just like yours every week. And it's something they have a ton of experience in, talking to marketing directors and answering those questions. And like you said, they get to see inside all of these businesses and what's working, what this one client is doing that this other client is not doing. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a different like perspective shift on how you view other people's businesses and your own. And it's if you get I'm not suggesting everyone open up their own a second company, but like if you do get the experience, it is kind of interesting what you learn.
Yeah, sure.
Well, usually I start to wrap up these podcasts. My first question, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't go over?
No, I think we covered a lot of good stuff, a lot of good information.
No. Well, what are your plans like next 6 months that you're willing to share? What are the big things coming up for you and your companies over the summer and the fall?
Yeah, so without going into too much detail, basically being able to take medical records and bills, and we already are providing so much data and information to law firms about that and making it very easy to consume with very little training. To get up and running in our platform takes 24 hours, and it's very simple to use. We're looking to make it even easier and simpler to really show a law firm their case from beginning to end without having to even click or prompt or do anything. And so that's something that we're really excited about that we'll be rolling out shortly. And I don't want to give away too many details about it, but super excited about what we have coming out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and talking with me. I love talking about AI, honestly. Where do you want people to look you up and learn more about you?
Yeah, best way to get in touch with me is my email, josh at lawpro.ai, lawpro.ai.
Yeah. Well, thanks again so much for being on the show, and thanks for the listeners for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.